Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa mawala wa ba'du. All praise and thanks are due solely to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Choices, peace, blessings and salutations upon our master and exemplar Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. You know, I must say, every week I prepare for the lesson, thinking that I haven't prepared enough because my time is extremely tight these days. It's insane. So I prepare thinking that, you know what, no, I didn't prepare enough yet. And then I prepare some more and then I lose some sleep because I didn't prepare. Then the period goes so insanely quick that that I didn't even get through a quarter of what I have prepared, thinking that I didn't prepare enough. So let's not waste any more time, inshallah ta'ala. I did say that we are going to do the i'rab of Surah Humaza this week, inshallah. And that's exactly what we're going to do now. So here you have my screen. You can see the screen, right? Verse 104 from ayah number 1. Everybody can see that?
Yes, Malana.
Khair. Okay. One person asked a question last week. Afida. I don't recall who asked the question, but it doesn't matter. I just wanted to give the answer quickly. So there's some interesting differences between the word qalb and fu'ad. Right? Qalb is generally referring to the instrument, but it could also refer, the instrument, the heart, but it could also refer to the inside, the essence of something. And it comes from the word qalaba, which means to turn, right? So the heart, if you look at the way the heart pumps, if you look at the actual heart, if you look at it, it looks like it's turning like this, like a washing machine, but it's actually just pumping the blood one side. It's got 4 chambers, so the chambers interact like that. It looks like it's turning. And then emotionally as well, the qalb turns, right? So today our qalb can be like this, tomorrow it can be like that, etc. Which is why I must always ask Allah for guidance. But then you have the fu'ad, right? The fu'ad only refers to the instrument, right? But it also refers to the emotional side of the heart when it burns with passion of some sort, right? When there's an extreme emotion in the heart, it's fu'ad. So it actually has the word to burn or to be inflamed, built into the word, which is interesting. So from your question, we come to discover that it's very sort of poetic and apt that Allah Ta'ala uses the word al-af'idah about the fire reaching the hearts of the people. The fire reaching the hearts of the people, because this very heart that they used and created, passion in, they created extreme emotion in the dunya, and often for other than the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, meaning against Allah's laws. The very heart will be now also full of emotion, but full of flames literally as well. So not just the emotional inflamed, but the literal being full of flames. And I think I mentioned this aspect, but like a fire doesn't reach the heart. You die, and then the other organs are just burnt, or your organs in the inside. By the time fire reaches your actual qalb, your actual heart, you're dead already. So here, the fire reaches the heart. The person is made to be alive, and the fire actually reaches the heart. Allah protect us. On top of that, the fire engulfs the heart in flame, but the person is also emotionally feeling the pain. It's not just the physical sensation of the pain, but the type of regret and remorse that one thinks about just imagining the punishment. The person's heart in Jahannam is filled with those emotions. So their heart is inflamed at an emotional level, and it's also full of flames at a physical level. So that answers the question there, right? The person who asked that question, I hope that you are here and that you've benefited from the answer, inshallah, and for the rest of us as well. All right. Now, moving on, there's certain phenomenon in the Arabic that I want to discuss as well before we get to the simple i'rab. The i'rab is pretty simple, pretty straightforward, but there's a few things we can actually learn from the Arabic of the surah before we get into the i'rab. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is there's certain elements in the Arabic not pertaining to i'rab per se, but other things like different scales and so on that you could benefit from as well. Because I learned a thing or two. I don't know if I forgot it or I just never knew about it, but I learned a thing or two about the words in the surah that I'd like to share with you now as well. Just give me a moment to open this before I share it. Humaza. And I'm just opening up Ibn Ashur's At-Tahrir wa Tanweer. Barakallah, Brother Nasif. Where is it? Here we go. So this is a tafsir, a tafsir by Ibn Ashur, At-Tahrir wa Tanweer. Ibn Ashur is actually quite contemporary. You'll see he passed away in 1393. We are now in 1432. So it's about, it's not ages ago. It's still considered contemporary. It's a very interesting tafsir. Of course, you've been exposed to this many a times by your other teachers as well. But I like the tafsir. So some of the things that I learned from this. Kalimatu wailul lahu. This word wail, wailul lahu. It is du'a'ud al majrur. When you have it in this form, wail and li, right? Wail, wailul li kulli, right? Then it is du'a'un al majrur ismuhu billam bi ayyana lahu al wail. So it is actually a du'a imploring Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bring destruction, to bring wail. Wail means destruction or curses, right? Wail has another meaning in terms of tafsir, and that is wail refers to a flame, or not a flame, a place in Jahannam that is so severe that the other places of Jahannam seeks Allah's refuge from that place in Jahannam. That's another meaning of the word wail. And of course, when we say it means curses, to be cursed in the Shara'i sense is to be removed from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's included in the word wail. وَهُوَ سُوءُ الْحَالِ. It is a very bad condition, كَمَا تَقَدَّمَ غَيْرَ مَرَّةٍ, as appeared many times before. Check this out, right? For those of you who like to use your computers for your studies, just have a look at this. There's a dictionary that you can get called Verbase, right? So if you're stuck with a word, you don't know what the word means, instead of having to look the word up or to type it into Google Translate or to copy and paste it, etc., this dictionary allows you to just do this. You hover the cursor on the word and it gives you translations. So what you see at the bottom here, just underneath, this is actually from Google Translate, which I managed to also install. That gives you a word, definition, and root. But then just above that which says 3. So this only works on the internet. What the first thing that you see at the bottom, word, definition, root, that block only works when you're using something online. But the other one that says 3 matches and gives you different words for it, not that one. Okay, the one at the top that says threat, menace, that is utilized anywhere in any application. So for example, I will show you another screen. This is Maktabatu Shamila. So if you're using Maktabatu Shamila, which is a computer software for Arabic books and so on, so it will work on here as well. I just need to hover the cursor over the word. Murphy's Law. Oh, there we go. and then it gives you the meanings of the word. So any word that you're stuck with, right? Eventually, inshallah, you won't need to use it a lot, but there's always one or two words that you're just like, okay, what's a good translation for this word? And then you get it. It is, you can download it for free and use it for a little while, and then you have to pay for it, something like $34. But there are some cracks available on the internet if you're into that kind of thing as well. Okay, I just thought I'd share that. It might be useful, it might not. Right? Back to this. Yes, وكلمة كل تشعر بأن المهددين بهذا الوعيد جماعة. The word كل, as in ويل لكل همزة, this gives the understanding that those who are destroyed with this, whale that was mentioned, is جماعة, is a group. وهم الذين اتخذوا همز المسلمين ولمزهم ديدنا لهم أولئك الذين تقدم ذكرهم في سبب نزول السورة. So it refers to a group, and the specific group, they used to take the believers for a joke, they used to mock at them, they used to what's the word? Anyway, used to mock at them, they used to deride them, right? And this is mentioned in the sababun nuzul of this particular surah. Then you have the word humazatun and lumazatun. Wailul likulli humazatin lumazatin. These words, biwazni fu'alatin. And this is one that I either forgot or never knew before, but I found it interesting. So it comes on a particular scale. Biwazni comes on a scale. Oops. And that scale is fu'alatin. Just look at this here. Fu'alatin. And you notice that the words humaza and lumaza both fit perfectly on that scale. Fu'alatin. It is siratun tadullu ala kathrati sudu. Oops. Excuse me. صيغة تدل على كثرة صدور الفعل المصاغ منه. This is a صيغة. This scale indicates that there's كثرة صدور الفعل المصاغ منه. There's a lot of this action coming from that person. So it's a form of mubalagha, it's a form of hyperbole, showing that it's not just the person does it once, twice, thrice. The person does it all the time, right? The person enters into hams and lams all the time. وأنه صار عادة لصاحبه. It becomes a norm, it becomes an عادة لصاحبه, for the person doing it. كقولهم ضحكة. If you say somebody is ضحكة, that means they are لكثير الضحك, they're always laughing. And then وَلُعْنَةٌ, if you say something or somebody is لُعْنة, it means they are لكثير اللعن, they are always cursing, right? وأصلها أن صيغة فعل بضم. Okay, so that's a bit technical, but it's basically للمبالغة في فاعل. It's مبالغة, it's hyperbole, right? Its origin in the singular form is فعل بضم ففتح ترد للمبالغة. That's the origin, فعل. So humazatin is humazin and lumazatin is lumazin. So these are just the scales that the words appear on that gives you extra meaning. And then he goes into some examples that I think would be a bit too much for now. Okay, going on. قال المرادي في شرح تسهيل قال بعضهم ولم يسمع غيرها ولا يقاس عليها وأن سيبوي أنه أجاز القياس عليها في إني. Okay, that's not relevant right now. همزة وصف مشتق من الهمز. The word humaza is a description that has been derived from the word hams. وهو أن يعيب أحد أحدا بالإشارة. What does it mean to make humaza? وَيْلٌ لِكُلِّ هُمَزَةٍ. What do they do? What do they do abundantly? They are أن يعيب أحد أحدا بالإشارة. It is when one person points out the faults of another person. بالعين specifically. أو بالشدق أو بالرأس. Or they indicate, they either point to the eye or they indicate like this with a nod or something of that nature. بحضرته أو عند توليه. They do that when the person is present أو عند توليه, or when the person turns away. ويقال هامز وهماز. It is also said, you can also use the word hamiz or hammaz, which is also hyperbolic forms of the word. وصيغة فعلة, as you can see in the ayah, humazatin, يدل على تمكن الوصف من الموصوف. That indicates that it's an integrated principle. It's something that is, deep seated within them. It's not just that they're mocking once or twice. They're always doing this type of thing. And I'm sure, you've seen this type of behavior within humans as well, where the person is always pointing out the faults of other people. Always, always, always. So that is included in the word humazatin. And of course, the same thing applies to lumazat. As you can see here, lumazatun wasfun mushtaqun min al-lams, وهو مواجهة المواجهة بالعيب. This is when you actually confront the people and tell them about their faults. So you're speaking about them to their faces. So Humaza is pointing out people's faults behind their backs or without them being aware of it. And Lumaza is pointing out people's faults to them and insulting people to their faces, basically. And this is وَصِيغَتُهُ دَالَةٌ عَلَى أَنَّ ذَلِكَ الْوَصْفِ مَلَكَةٌ لِصَاحِبِهِ. This sigha of Lumaza, as seen in the surah, indicates that it is a quality that exists as an intrinsic quality of the person. وهذان الوصفان من معاملة أهل الشرك للمؤمنين يومئذ. These were the qualities of the people of shirk, right? The mushrikun, for the believers يومئذ, at that time. ومن عامل من المسلمين أحدا, and whoever interacts from among the Muslims with anyone من أهل دينه, of their own faith, بمثل ذلك, in a similar way, كان له نصيب من هذا الوعيد, then they will also share from the shares of this particular threat. فمن اتصف بشيء من هذا الخلق, so whosoever is ascribed with anything of this characteristics, الذميم, this reprehensible characteristic, من المسلمين, of the believers, مع أهل دينه, especially with people of their own faith, فإنها خصلة من خصال أهل الشرك, then know that this is a quality of the people of shirk. وهي ذميمة تدخل في أذى المسلم, and this is a reprehensible behavior that will harm a Muslim. وله مراتب كثيرة, and this has many levels and ranks, بحسب قوة الأذى, in terms of how strong the harm can be, وتكرره, and how often it is repeated. Naam. So I just thought I'd share that to show us the severity of the evil that's mentioned in the surah bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Maybe that's why it's an ism form and not in a verb form. Naam. Yes. One of the simple things in terms of the Arabic is that when something gets an ism form, then it's more, sort of stable. Like you can say this person is giving charity, right? And is giving charity is just something that is temporal, they're doing it right now. Whereas if you say this is a charitable person, now it's a quality that is attached to the person, and it's more permanent, it's there as a long-term function in the person's life. Now we can move on to the i'rab. Inshallah ta'ala, there are some more Arabic things other than the i'rab that I'd like to point out, but for now, let's just do what we need to do. Waylun. Yes, bismillah.
Sorry, in the end part of this, you mentioned that there's different levels. I missed that. So you said that this is they will be part of the same. So it's the qualities of the people of shirk, and that if Muslims follow that, especially with their fellow Muslims, they will be a part of the same group. But then you said something about levels. I missed that part.
Oh, okay. So the qualities that we spoke about is not a monolithic, right? So people who engage in those evil acts, they're not necessarily going to all be the same, right? So you could be engaged in it just a little bit, in which case it applies to you only a little bit, and if you engage in it a lot, it applies to you a lot. Does that make sense?
Yes. No, so I mean, I think that the verse is very serious to say that this is how serious the punishment is.
No.
But doesn't that like make it feel less serious if you're saying, okay, because a person can justify that they only do this a little bit, and so granted you should never want to be experiencing the whale.
Exactly. So no. Look, I understand what you're saying, but it's severe enough, like a believer. At the end of the day, a believer is going to go to Jannah. Eventually, a believer is going to go to Jannah. But should any believer feel like, you know what, if I need to burn for a couple of days, that's okay? No. So it's absolutely not less serious. It just means that you're not at the same level of a mushrik, right? By engaging in these qualities, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are destined for Jahannam, which would obviously lead to a sense of hopelessness.
Okay, so that's where Allah is putting that's where that context comes in. Okay, no, shukran.
No. Allah's mercy is always outstanding. Subhanallah. Waylun likulli humaza. So we understand the word wayl, that's an ism. So this in this case here, waylun likulli humaza. This is an ism. How would you analyze this particular ism in this case here? Obviously, it's in halatul raf. Now the question is, why is it in halatul raf? And the answer is?
It's the mubtada?
It's the mubtada.
Mubtada, yes.
Right, very simply, it's the mubtada. So it's in the nakira form. In other words, it's not possessive of the lamu ta'arif. It's not al-wayl, it's waylun. And as you've come to learn that when waylun is combined with the lam of jar wa majroor, and then it forms that dua. And then you have the next section. Likulli jar wa majroor. That's the simplest rule, and I'm sure you can all recognize that. Waylul likulli. Now the word kulli, or kullu, or kulla, what do we usually expect to find with the word kullu?
Mudafun ilay.
A mudafun ilay. So the word kullu, generally speaking, is going to have a mudafun ilay. What is it? Just for interest's sake, it's not relevant now, but when it does not have a mudafun ilay, what does it get in its place? For example, in Surah Yasin, you have وَكُلٌّ فِي فَلَكِ يَسْبَحُونَ. Because there's no mudafun ilay, so it doesn't get وَكُلُّ شَيْءٍ فِي فَلَكِ يَسْبَحُونَ وَكُلُّ وَاحِدٍ فِي فَلَكِ يَسْبَحُونَ. It's just وَكُلٌّ فِي فَلَكِ يَسْبَحُونَ. So instead of that mudafun ilay, what does it get? Who knows?
Majhul.
Excuse me? Majhul, no.
Then it's majhul.
Not quite. Not quite majhul. It gets that tanween there, right? Kullun fi falaki yasbahun. And that tanween has a special name. Now, I don't expect you to know all these concepts that I mentioned, because I still have to, as I said before, get familiarized with where you guys are. So when I throw in something like this, if you didn't cover it yet, it's not a train smash. You just throw it at the back of your mind somewhere, write it down somewhere. You'll get to it eventually. It gets that special tanween. That's a tanween of replacement, and that's called tanween iwad. A tanween iwad, right? Kullun fi falaki yasbahun. So whenever you see a kullu, you're expecting to see a mudafun ilay. When you don't see a mudafun ilay, then you're probably going to see this tanween, and that's called a tanween iwad. In this case, you see a mudafun ilay. So, waylun likulli humazatin. Humazatin. So, there's your mudafun ilay. Kullu humazatin or kulli humazatin. And lumazatin. You have humazatin, lumazatin. How would we analyze this? We know humazatin is mudafun ilay, but how do we analyze lumazatin in relation to this? Who wants to give it a go?
I can't get to the word now.
Would be Mawsuf Sifa.
Mawsuf Sifa. Excellent. And what gives it away?
The greasing.
The khal and it. Yeah.
There's four things that give it away. The gender, they're both feminine. The encasing.
And if it's definite or indefinite.
Definite or indefinite, they're both indefinite. And
what the N stands for?
Number.
Number. So gender, encasing, number, and definiteness. humazatin, lumazatin. It's exactly the same, and therefore it is mawsuf sifa. الذي جمع مالا وعدده. الذي جمع مالا وعدده. So this is there's different ways of expressing this, but this is for me the simplest. الذي, that which, or the one who, right? If you just look at that meaning, the one who, and you're starting off a sentence like that, then obviously this word, the one who, in Arabic it's alladhi, is referring to what? To something that has come already, isn't it? You don't start off a new discussion by saying, oh, the one who. Am I right? Only ladies do that. Only ladies do that. Ladies will start off a discussion with you. Irshad, remember the one that, and I'm like, what? When did we speak about something? I'm confused. No, man, when we were sitting in the car and you spoke about that, like, oh, you should have started with that. So ladies are very, mashallah, they're very skilled at that. And you know what? What's even more weird is that when ladies talk to one another, then they know exactly what they're talking about. So they can just start off by saying the one who, and then the other one will know exactly, and they could be continuing a conversation that happened 3 hours ago, but they would know what the follow-up is. A man would be completely lost. We need the subject of the conversation to have just taken place. Okay? So alladhi is here referring to something that has already been referred to. We already know it's wailun likulli humazatin lumazatin. Alladhi carries on from that idea. So alladhi is actually serving as a description of what was mentioned before. Okay? So yes, it's ismul mawsula, but it is also a sifa. It's describing the one that came before. It's giving further detail. Does that make sense? Everybody?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
Malana. Yes, Malana.
Okay, type. So that's your sifa, right? So you had mawsuf, sifa. And of course, the ismul mawsul doesn't change, right? It's built like this. It's mabni. And the mabni word is not going to give much away as far as i'rab is concerned, encasing, definiteness, gender, number, and so on. It gives very, very little away, right? Alladhi, alladhani, alladhina, that changes, right? The number. And we can see the number complies because this is singular and the others are singular as well. But you're not going to see, besides that, you're not going to see much information about that. You'll see also other examples in the future where you can see this in greater detail. بإذن ta'ala. الذي جمع مالا وعدده. So I just heard you in the other class. I didn't know what you were speaking about, but I heard you saying something about jama'a. So now you're going to tell me, right? The one who jama'a malan wa'addadahu. So teach me, what did you just learn about? Bismillah.
Alladhi is the ismul mawsul, and it's followed by the silatul mawsul, which is jama'a, referring back to it is your hidden huwa, but it refers back to your ismul mawsul.
Okay, great. That's perfect. So I don't need to say anything beyond that. That's perfect. Alladhi is your ismul mawsul, and then your jama'a malan forms your sila, and the fa'il is inside. It's the huwa, and it goes back to the ismul mawsul. Perfectly stated. Remember, when it comes to expressing i'rab, there's actually a book written by one of the former teachers of the Darul Uloom in Strand, Sheikh Dawood Jalajil, called Expressing I'rab. There's various ways that you can actually express i'rab, but then there are certain standards. I'm not completely familiar with all the standards. I just express it in the way that I was taught it, or the way that makes sense to me. It's still right, but it doesn't necessarily mean that there's only one way. So it's like when I generally talk about analysis of words, I never mention things like the ismul mawsul and the sila and things like that. For me, it's just like, what's the relevance of that one word there in that instance? So it's right. It's absolutely right. You will just find as you go along that you can actually, skin a cat in more than one way, as terrible as that proverb is. Alladhi jama'a malan, the one who jama'a, gathered, malan, gathered wealth. It's also interesting to note when the Quran uses a word in the definite form, al-mal, jama'a al-mala, he gathered the wealth. No, he gathered malan, wealth, because the gathering of wealth isn't going to be one specific type of wealth, right? For some people, it could be material wealth, actual money. But think of today, wealth can be in so many different ways and forms. Wa'addadahu. Okay, who wants to teach me something about this word while I stop sharing the screen, because there's a lot of answers on there already. Who wants to teach me something about that word? Was I not sharing that screen the entire time?
No more than for the past maybe 10, 15 minutes.
Astaghfirullah. I thought I was. Okay, anyway, right now I wasn't going to. So what can you teach me about wa'addadahu?
The verb in the second scale, on the second scale.
Okay, it's a verb. It's on the second scale. What else?
It's a Maldi verb.
It's a Maldi verb. Excellent. What else? Is the wow part of the verb?
No, that's and.
It's not part of the verb. So that's waw al-atf. Good. Excellent. Where's the fa'il of the verb?
I think it's inside.
It's inside huwa.
Does anybody think it's the who at the end? Wa'addadahu.
No.
No, it's not, right?
Oh.
When you have a damir attached to a verb, what does it represent?
Maf'ulun
Maf'ulun bihi. I found one of the most beneficial lessons for students, and also one of the most tricky for some reason or the other. Well, I don't know, maybe it was just a bad teacher, in other words, me. But students often confuse this, and it's such an important lesson. When a damir is attached to a harf, when a damir is attached to an ism, when a damir is attached to a fi'al, knowing that and knowing that well will save you so many headaches, right? And I think it's very important, and I'm glad to see that that you guys have a good grasp of that. Alhamdulillah, that's great. So do make sure that you have a full appreciation of it, because it comes up again and again and again, obviously, right? I'm going to share the screen again that I thought I was sharing. Sorry about that. وَعَدَّدَهُ يَحْسَبُ حَسِبَ يَحْسَبُ. Which bab is this verb on, first and foremost? Which scale? First scale. Excellent. In fact, it's one of the common examples we use when we learn the verbs. Where's the fa'il of this verb? Yes, Sister Shahida, where's the fa'il of yahsabu? Inside, and it is what? He. So it's again ضمير مستتر تقديره هو he. يحسب أن ماله. So أن we generally just refer to it as حرف النصب, right? أن is a sister of إن. So have you done إن and كان before?
Starting next week, man.
I see. So I'm not going to get into too much detail with this. As simple as possible, there are rules that apply to inna and there are rules that apply to kana, right? And they're basically opposite. So kana works kana rajulu wahidan, and inna works inna allaha qawiyun, right? So the one goes and the other one goes depending on what it is. Kana has sisters that have the same application, and inna has sisters which have the same application. Anna is one of the sisters of inna, so it will apply in the same way. That means the ism, you're looking for an ism of anna, and you're looking for a khabar of anna. Not always, but that's generally how it works. So the ism of anna is simple to identify. Anna ma lahu. Anna ma lah. So this anna has an ism. The ism is mal. That's why mal or wealth is in halatun nasb, because it's the ism of anna, right? And that's that. That's all you need to know. It's as simple as that. But if you didn't understand what I just said, again, don't stress about it. Inshallah, when you do the lesson, then you already have a ready example for that, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. And as you can see here, there's an ism of anna, but there's no khabar of anna. There's no clearly discernible khabar of anna, right? And that's very normal. So yahsabu, he thinks, anna malahu, that his wealth, akhladahu. Akhlada, what bab is this on?
4.
Number four. I know that often the answers that I'm seeking is on the screen, but that's besides the point, right? It's not only just knowing the answer that helps, but sometimes just saying the answer, even if the answer is right there in front of you, but saying it helps. The more senses we utilize when learning, the quicker and easier we learn and the longer we retain. So by just listening to somebody speak, like in the form of me speaking to you, and you're not learning in a very solid way, in a very permanent way, but by interacting automatically, you are learning much more. So you're saying, you're looking, you're listening, you're repeating, etc. If you're writing down, even better. That would all assist in the learning process, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. So it's the fourth bab. أخلد يخلد إخلادا مخلد. أخلد يخلد إخلادا مخلد. أخلد لا تخلد. أخلده ضمير مستتر تقديره هو is your فاعل. Going back to the mal. أن ماله, that his wealth, أخلده, that it will cause him to live forever. So cause him to live forever. Khalid or khuld or khalada means to be immortal, basically. Akhlada is to make immortal or to make live forever, which is the fourth bab. It becomes transitive. Akhlada hu. Where is the maf'ul of akhladahu?
The who, Maulana?
The ha, because it's a damir attached to a fi'al, and thus it is your maf'ulun bihi. Kalla. Now I just happened to see the homework that was given to you last week. Can Sister Tawheeda perhaps tell me, was there homework in relation to kalla? Not from me, from one of the other teachers at all?
Yes, it's homework that I was struggling with, Maulana, because kalla is supposed to negate what comes for, you understand, negate. But in that particular surah, we can't find anything that negates because it has to do with human development. So it negates and then affirms what comes after kalla, negates and what affirms. What comes before is being negated by kalla.
Okay, great. So here we have an example of that. Dave, it's excellent to know exactly where you're at in the other classes as well. So this harfu rada', this aversion particle, does what? It, as Sister Tawheeda mentioned, it negates what comes before and affirms what comes after. So what came before? يحسب أن ماله أخلده. He thinks that his wealth will cause him to live forever, right? He lives as though, he's just accruing and accruing and accruing as though he's going to live forever. Or he believes that his wealth is giving him power and his power is infinite. You see, the Quran is not a complicated book, but it's also not a silly book. I mean, it's the Quran. It's there so that it can appeal to the intellect of the uneducated as well as the educated. Is there a single human being of any level of intelligence, right, a sane human being, who thinks that they will actually live forever? No, nobody thinks that. It doesn't literally mean that, he or she believes that they're going to live forever. So what then does it mean? What do you think?
I feel, Maulana, it means the lifestyle that we live, we feel that we're never going to die.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's different dimensions of it, and we can express it in different ways. But essentially what it comes down to is, if you are investing every minute of your day in gathering wealth, amassing wealth, getting to the top of the ladder, in your home, in your career, in the stuff that you have, right? You spend 12 years going through schooling and you're working super hard. Why? Because you need to get into a good university. And then you get into university and you work super hard so that you can get your degree, so that you can get into postgraduate studies. And then you all the way working super hard until eventually you graduate. Why? So that you can get a really good job, so that you can get a very big salary, so that you can buy nice stuff and a big house in a nice area with a nice car, and you can have your trophy husband or trophy wife, and you can wear the best of clothing, and you continue to work super hard because there's always more that you want and there's always more that you desire, and you continue and continue, all the while living as though there's no akhirah, as though you're making your Jannah here. And lo and behold, one day it's just over and you're on your deathbed. And now all that you worked super hard for, not saying we shouldn't work hard for the dunya, but if you exclusively worked for that, now you're sitting in a situation where you realize that you didn't invest anything in the akhirah. And that's essentially what the verse is getting to. So the word kalla comes to negate that. It's like when somebody in Kaitan says, "Nee man, just like, enough man, like wake up. No man, just stop it." So kalla, no. And then the rest of the verse comes and affirms la yumbadanna fil hutama, and the outcome. So we stop there, inshallah. We'll need another one period to get through the rest of the Arab. I hope this was of benefit. And of course, you guys need to join the other class. So until next time, right? Barakallahu feekum. Until next time. All the best. Wassallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Subhanallah wa bihamdi. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilaik. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله
ورحمة الله وبركاته.